Hi, this is how to test to see when your malolactic fermentation has completed. That's important for a couple of reasons. One is that you need to establish that it has finished before you can bottle your wine, because in the spring, if it hasn't finished, then it will go into a spontaneous malolactic fermentation. And if you bottle at that time, then it'll pop your corks out, or worse, explode your bottles. So first of all, whether it's a natural fermentation or if you have inoculated it, to start this fermentation, the test for it is the same. I inoculate for malolactic fermentation on all red wines. That's where the malic acid is converted to lactic acid, and it results in a much smoother wine. Okay, that's another subject which I may or may not put in the notes. I might just put it in later. But for right now, how you actually do the test. Okay, first of all, you take a chromatography paper, okay, and you make marks on it. So you make marks 1 inch from the bottom, okay, and then make a line all the way across so that you have a 1 inch line going all the way across the bottom. Okay, then at each 1 inch mark, use that 8 by 10 chromatography paper. At each 1 inch mark, put a little arrow, okay. Wear gloves when you're doing this, because you are going to be working with some acids and chemicals. Okay, so I have my marks. Then you take these little, I don't know what they call these, capillary tubes. They're little capillary tubes, and they're glass. They're very fragile. Okay, so you're supposed to put some of your standards in here. There's a range of amount. So what I've done is I've taken an empty capillary tube here, and you see these little black marks here. I've made those marks at the range. Okay, then I just tape that to this bottle, so that when I take my empty capillary tube and you dip it into the standards. First is the tartaric acid. I think that's this one. Okay, one is a tartaric acid, one is a malic acid, one is a lactic acid. You just put this little thing in there. When you dip it in there, some of the liquid starts to come up into the tube. Okay, so each one of these, you put this down on your paper, and then when you do, the paper then starts absorbing the liquid that's in the tube. You're going to hold it up against here to see when you have the right amount in there, within that range. If there's too much, just kind of lay it against the little paper towel you've put there, and it'll absorb it really fast. If you let out too much, just put some more in again. All right, so you're going to do that with each one. Don't reuse any of these tubes. Once you put in your tartaric acid, lay that aside, take another tube, and do the same thing with your other acids. That one, put it on there, throw it away. Put that one, put it on there, throw it away. Okay, after you have done those, then you mark them too. I put a T, a M, and an L. Okay, then in each barrel of wine is numbered. Okay, and if you're using a carboy, make sure that you number your carboys. Put the number of the vessel that you're testing under here. Like if I put B1, B2, tank, 4, whichever vessel of wine that I'm testing. Okay, so if you're using a carboy, you can just test directly, just dip it down into your carboy. I make blackberry wine and carboy still. Just put it on a clip like this, dip it down into the neck. It'll just start to fill up really quick. And with your wine, you're going to see it a lot easier than these liquid acids. Put it up there, get the right amount, take it off the clip, and then put it on barrel wine or carboy wine, whatever. If you're using tanks or barrels, then you just use your wine thief and take just a little bit of wine, tiny bit of wine out, put it into a sample container, a bunch of these little things like this. Be sure and mark your sample container to correspond with your barrel or tank. And same thing, just dip your stick into there. It takes it up. You hold it on there. If it starts to give you a little trouble to get on there, just rock it back and forth or go around like that. And sometimes you can kind of click it, and then it will often break. So I just try to be patient and just move it around a little bit. Okay, so you get all those on there, and then you give it about a half an hour to 45 minutes to dry. Then after that, you take your paper and you roll it into a circle. It's kind of thick paper. And then you take your stapler and then just staple. Oh, and on your marks, only use pencil. Pen will mess up your test. It'll, mess it up. Okay, so you staple each end like that. Okay, you put your solvent or developer, it goes by both names, into your jar. Open and close the jar quickly because this stuff is pretty nasty. So you put it in there and make sure that it's coming up to about, a half an inch point, about that much in your jar. If you buy kits, they send a kind of frosted plastic jar, but I just replaced it with a glass jar so I can see what's going on. Over time, which will take anywhere from 6 to 10 hours, depending, this solvent will start to raise up the paper, and you can see it that now the solvent it's kind of absorbed into the paper and has risen all the way to the top. Once it's done that, and if you need to put it in overnight, that's fine. If it's in there a little bit too long a time, that's okay. All right, so now you're all done, and you go to take it out. Best thing to do with these staples, because now this paper is wet, but you need to unroll it for it to dry out. So I just pull it. I just pull it apart, and it actually does less damage. Hold it where the staples are, and then just pull it. Just pull one side like that, and then you have a lot less damage to your paper. Okay, so then you take your paper and hang it up. I have a metal rack that I set it in, but you can also just put plastic clips on it and hang it up somewhere. But I normally do several sheets at one time because I have many vessels of wine to test. So, but let's just say that you're doing one, clip it up, hang it up somewhere outside, because this, I put these down in the winery. If I put these sheets down in the winery to dry, it will not only smell up the entire winery, it will drift up and smell up the entire house. And this stuff, you really don't want to smell it for very long, not only because it's kind of foul smelling, but it's not too good for you either. All right, so you have these, let them dry outside. If it's raining, which happened to me in a couple of my tests, it will mess up your paper, but you'll still see the results. Okay, so I did, like I said, I have already done all my tests, and this is the results that I got. Okay, let's see if I can get a good shot of this. Okay, here is one of the test sheets. This one shows, here's the tartaric, and here's the malic. I put tartaric, malic, and lactic. So what I see from this one here, and here's my standards. This is showing me where the dots need to be. Okay, so here everything has tartaric acid in it, and it should be that way for a red wine or wine in general. This is the malic, and this is the standard. But if I look across the different wine samples I have, there's no dots for the tartaric. Okay, excuse me, for the malic. This top one is the lactic acid standard, and as you can see, there's very distinct dots on each one of these for that one. So that means each one of these vessels has completed malolactic fermentation. There's no more malic acid in here. It's all been converted to lactic. This will be safe to bottle. Right now my wine is in cold stabilization, and as soon as it's done, it's fine, racked, it can go and be bottled. It's safe to be bottled. Okay, another one here, same thing. This one's a little bit harder to see because it got a beating in the rain, but same thing. I can see that the tartaric is there as it should be, and there's no malic. Every one of them has, this got worse over time, but at the time I could see that all that had malic. Okay, if you're in a situation like this one here, where the line for malic is here, and I see there's no malic, but I can't really see the lactic acid. I know it's there because it has one or the other. Okay, so here is another test. This one shows the standards, and on this one, the fermentation has not finished. You can see that there are dots for the malic and for the lactic on all of these vessels. So right now I could reinoculate and try to finish this, but I'm not going to do that because it's more important. I can do that later. But right now it's very cold in the winery, and I need that period of time of cold stabilization. That I can't reproduce, but I can reintroduce malolactic fermentation, and so I will do that in the spring on these. On this one, it's the same thing. This is all of these have malic. In fact, on these vessels, there's more malic than there is lactic. So this is even has gotten less further along than the other one. Interesting one on this one too, as you see over here, that for the tartaric, which you should see on every one, is missing. Well, these two vessels contain blackberry wine, so that's not unusual there. And there's different things that I can do with that. I'm really not, really aged blackberry wine, so it's not really an issue. I can blend it with some other things to affect the taste, or put citric acid or something like that, but I would probably leave it alone. But this is more concerned with what you do about the malolactic fermentation rather than the tartaric, and mostly on red wine rather than fruit wines. Okay, so that's everything. And if you have any questions, just put it in the comments, or PM me, I guess. And I will put some links as to good places for you to get these materials. To begin with, I guess it's probably good to buy a kit. Only because it can end up to be less money, because by the time, there's some places it's a better place to buy your papers. Some places, these are cheaper. Some places, each one of these are cheaper. But by the time you pay the shipping charges to these different places, you end up paying more. So it's probably better in the first time just to buy your kit, and then After that, you can go to the individual places to replace your papers, your standards, and your standards will never have to be replaced. They'll last forever, but you will eventually run out of solvent because it comes up into your paper, and you'll definitely run out of papers and your little capillaries. Okay,